college football. Before then, I played wide receiver, led the West Coast yards, catches, touchdowns, had to triple team me, double team me, roll coverage, all you could think of, right? And and make them pay every single time, right? And so that was I was really an aggressive guy playing offense, and I loved offense better than defense. I really didn't even like hitting people in high school. I just did it because you were just in my way. And, that kind of changed when I got to college and, getting pushed around my freshman year, coming in 215, 210 pounds, playing outside linebacker with guys from Wisconsin, 6'7", 350 flat stomachs. You got to put some weight on.
Right. So let me ask you this. Actually, what made you change positions, or did you always wanted to change positions, or did the college, obviously you went to Michigan, did they give you opportunity to play offense too, or just defense? Or what made you change to defense?
Well, it wasn't really my choice. It's one of those things where, teams have their boards, they have their players and what they're going to do. Like, they know what they're going to do 4 years before you're even there, right? They know what positions they're going to fill. I signed up as an athlete, across the board, whether it was Ohio State, Nebraska, Miami, all these other places, I was an athlete. And so some places were signing me as wide receiver. Some places wanted me to play tight end. None of them wanted me to play defensive end or anything like that. And so when I got to Michigan, I wasn't prepared for that. And I switched positions from offense, wide receiver, skilled position down to it was one of those generations, one of those times though, you had guys like Dwight Freeney, um, Javon Curse, those were the guys were typical safety protocol kind of guys. They were big, they were long, they were fast, and they were taking those guys and they were putting them on the line of scrimmage, right? That's what New England was doing with like Willie McGinnis and a lot of those guys. And I got caught into that era when I got moved from a safety to an outside linebacker, later a defensive end. It was a complete shock. Like, I totally wasn't prepared for that. It's not as easy as people think. Like, if you're not used to using your hands or playing in a ready position and like I use athletic ability and talent and, to get around people. I've never had to like use and really confront you with my hands. And if you don't know that, you're going to get your ass kicked.
Right. Yeah. So we're big Dallas. I'm a big Dallas Cowboy fan also. What was it like? Obviously, you said that Mike Irvin. Also, did you look up? Did you see what was it like watching the Cowboys back in the '90s when they had like Deion Sanders also and Staubach and Darren Woodson? You just said Darren Woodson and these other talented Cowboy players. What was it like seeing them back in the '90s?
Man, it was, I'm from Washington, so there's a lot of Seahawks stuff and all this other stuff. Like, it was very, for me, like, that's what it was. It was very powerful. It was my colors, blue and gray, growing up watching these guys, even Emmitt Smith. The crazy thing about it was my first professional game as a pro, I got to play against the Dallas Cowboys, right? And it was guys like Larry Allen. I grew up watching Larry Allen. Listen, this guy is so freaking strong.
Right.
Like, he's like 3 times and I'm a big linebacker. Like, I'm not a little linebacker. Like, I'm 255, 6'3", right? I'm ready to run through you. Watching this guy play growing up, then having an opportunity to play against him, and I'm playing middle linebacker, and he's the guard. Remember one play, this is when you learn, like, you can't make any false steps. Like, I think he might have given, like, half of me, maybe just a flipper. Man, my whole left side was hurting for, like, 2 weeks. Like, that dude is huge, strong. But it was like, man, I can't believe I'm playing against him, right? But other than that, it's different watching guys than being able to play with them and compete with them. It's like a whole nother surreal experience.
Yeah, so I think we have his son on the team also in the current team. I think Larry Allen Jr. I think I'm pretty sure we have him on the Cowboys. I gotta check the roster, but I heard that we signed his son, but his son is apparently a great offensive tackle. Also, I'm hearing.
Really?
Yeah.
He should be. His dad was a monster. I'm talking about a monster. Like, he did
Yeah.
not want. You better hope you have a good tackle down there that can get a piece of that guy,
Yeah.
because you don't want him on you if you're a linebacker.
Right.
Absolutely
So,
not.
so coming out of high school, how many offers did you have from colleges, and what made you choose Michigan? Obviously, Michigan is the high caliber team in the country in college football, and also I'm not sure you played with Jared Bunch. I interviewed him recently. Jared, another former Michigan alum. Did you get to play with him and Desmond Howard, or what made you let to choose Michigan?
First of all, Jared Bunch is probably one of the most talented. He's like an example of what guys do and excel, like off the field. He basically can do whatever he wants to do, and right, like there's a lot of guys talent. A lot of guys don't get as much credit of what they've accomplished when they're off the field. I love watching Desmond Howard and and all of those guys. It's this whole Michigan tradition thing for me. Like, my whole family is actually from Ohio.
Hmm.
We're all from Dayton, Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio, Columbus and those areas. So there's a bunch of Buckeyes in my bloodline. I can't stand them either. And but it's I had I would say 81 offers
Hmm.
to play football. About 35 to 40 to play basketball.
Oh, wow.
Some opportunities were two sports to play both, and I love basketball more than football. I did. I love jumping over people and stuff like that, and it was a crazy experience because for me, my life was a little bit different. Now listen, I've played like guys like Vince Warfork and all those guys. Like, those guys, like I can tell my story about like how I grew up and different things, but then there's always guys who don't have parents or don't have food or didn't have a home, or didn't have a lot of those things. And so I'm always cautious of, telling my story and some of these things. But for me, like, I never really thought about if I was going to make it or not, if I was going to go to the NFL, or if I was going to, play big college football. Like, I loved it, but it wasn't like, for me, it wasn't like really a reality. And it never hit me until I got on the airplane to go to Michigan. It never hit me. I'm telling you, it never hit me until I got on the airplane and I realized that I'm going somewhere where I absolutely know no one. But I was cool with it. I don't know. It was kind of weird.
Hmm. So, what was it like, the experience like playing with Jared Bunch? Actually, like I said, I interviewed him on the show recently, Jared Bunch, and he was a great interview. So what was it like playing with him? And then did you play with Jim Harbaugh too on that year?
Oh, those guys are way older than me. Like, my guys, I came in 2000, 2003. So we had, Larry Foots, Cato Junes, Anthony Thomas, David Terrells, Braylon Edwards.
Hmm.
That's when we were some hardcore guys, from Detroit, or, from the slums, who came in for
Right.
a greater purpose,
Yeah.
and which we did. And playing with those guys were like my brothers, man. Everybody can say that, but it's like the culture, at Michigan that came down from Coach Carr and the alumni, the people that were there, it was like you needed to win. You win for Michigan. You win. You represent your family. You represent the guys that are next to you. You represent the name that's on the back of your jersey. And it goes through history, like historic stuff. I mean, Bo Schembechler was still alive, and he would come in the building every single day, right? And so, like, it wasn't, that whole thing was just built and entwined into you. And so that whole thing, like, I'm a diehard Michigan guy even to this day, and I don't, we just want to win, but it's something that it lives on in you forever.
So now, after your Michigan career, you got the opportunity to play for the Cincinnati Bengals in 04 and 05. And what was that experience like, giving you the opportunity to come for their team and play? And what was it? What was it like putting the Bengals uniform on?
I love Cincinnati, the Brown family. That organization is one of the only left family organizations that are there. They're very well involved. They they communicate with their players, with even if you're not Chad Johnson or Ocho Cinco. And so I have nothing but respect for the Bengals. There's different experiences, right? So if you're talking to a guy who was drafted in the first, second, third, fourth, fifth round, you're going to hear a completely different story. If you talk to somebody who was drafted fifth to seventh round, or a walk-on, or not a walk-on, but a free agent signed player, or a player that comes from the practice squad, if you're 45 to 53 on that roster, you have a completely different story, a completely different mix. It's not the same. So you don't get the luxury of enjoying really the experience because you're on complete eggshells. Like you can't even pass gas in a meeting, you'll be cut, right? It's like it's it's a completely
Right.
and I give examples of this, because I was a second linebacker, middle linebacker. But what that means is being 45 to 53, if a tight end goes down, if an offensive lineman goes down, if something that doesn't even affect your position happens, they have to go to you first, regardless of how good you are, regardless, and if you're undrafted or whatever, you probably got a 2-year contract at a league minimum. And so you have all these other factors that are tied in there, but it makes you the first to go. And so there's enormous pressure on you for things that you can control and things that you can't control. And so it's like a roller coaster, an emotional roller coaster, thinking is today, am I going to lose my job?
Right.
And it happens. And that's a different story from 45 to 53 from guys who obviously first string starters.
So, what did you learn in Cincinnati, and what was the experience like there and playing with like a great team? And did you get to play with TJ Humsada, the tight end?
Oh, man. Who's sorry, my phone's ringing. I was like, Hoosh had probably one of the best hands I've ever seen. He had probably one of the best hands I've ever seen. And let me stop here for a second, because you mentioned Hoosh, and Hoosh is from California. I don't talk to him regularly, but let me say this: guys like Zada was like a prime example of this guy did everything right. He was a wonderful husband, a wonderful father. He never was out with us hanging out, like never. And he showed up to work every freaking day, gave 100%. And so I just wanted to say that about Hushimzad. A lot of people might not know that about him, but that guy was probably one of the most professional, most biggest professionals that I've been around, with Hushimzada. I forgot your original question. It kind of threw me off.
So I said, what was your experience at like in Cincinnati and playing with great players, and what did you learn from the coaching staff there when you were at Cincinnati?
I had some good coaches. Ricky Hunley was my linebacker coach. Marvin Lewis. Marvin Lewis, I respect Marvin. Marvin, he was cool with us. He disciplined us. He told us straight up like what was going on. Even Leslie Frazier, who was a defensive coordinator when I was there, an ex-Chicago Bear, he was there. He was great. The experience I had in Cincinnati, the town loved us. The players, we had Ocho Cinco, right? And so Carson Palmer.
Yeah.
And so every day was a holiday, right? Every day was some event, something was funny, something was good to be around. And remember, when I was in Cincinnati in 2004, 2005, there might have been only 5 players that were over the age of 26, 27. Like I can name them, like Willie Anderson, John Kitna, like Torrey James, like Deltha O'Neal. Then like we were all 22, 23, 24.
Yeah.
25 years old, right? We were real young.
Yeah.
So it was, we were young. We got in a lot of trouble. A lot of people got in a lot of stuff, but that's why you need a lot of veterans.
Right.
You need a lot of veterans around, guys that understand the markers and how to do what and what to do. Like it's a big deal. It sounds like, yeah, you should know, but no, really. There's a way to be a professional. It's not just playing football. It's how you conduct yourself off the field.
Mm-hmm.
It's how are you serious about this business and your business and the team's business? Are you watching film? Are you studying your opponent? Are you taking care of yourself? It sounds so, oh yeah, everybody knows that, but no. Like, you're a commodity. Like, that's the thing. Like, you're a commodity. Every player is a commodity. You're a commodity. To Jerry Jones, you're a commodity. To call it what you want. Like, that's what it is. And so you have to take care of yourself. That's your investment. That's who you are. If you pull an ankle, you hurt yourself, you don't take care of yourself, guess what? Your season's over, and so is your paycheck.
So obviously after your playing career, actually, let me ask you this. Well, speaking of Ocho Cinco, what was it like? What was he like as a teammate? And because a lot of people were criticizing him throughout his career, but what was he like as a teammate?
Criticizing him for what? Like, because he was animated? Because, man, I respect anybody who comes in. And number one, Chad was himself. And you know what? I've never seen Chad take a drink. Never. Like he was himself. He was a professional, even though, you know, he was just him. He was a character. And you know, if Chad wasn't like that, then something's wrong. Like, if Chad Johnson's in the corner in the locker room and he's not being Chad, then we got an effing problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, we got a problem, right? And so those guys, man, they wanted to win so bad. And it was like playing with these guys when I was in Cincinnati, it was like they were part of like the history of losing. And like they took that personal, like before them, that they like, we didn't want to be 8-8. We didn't want to be 7-9. Like, we really wanted to go to the playoffs. And to be honest with you, it was only possibly a total of like 9 points of how we missed the playoffs, or less than that. Like 6-7 points total, we missed the playoffs. If you think about like a field goal or one, we lost by 1, or we lost by 3. A total of 9 points kept us out of the playoffs. You know, in my first 2 seasons, we made it to and played against Pittsburgh when they cheap shot at Carson Palmer and took him out of the game before halftime. You know, they'll never admit that, dirty Steelers. But, you know, but that's what happened.
It always seems like there's some drama going on between the Steelers and Bengals. Crazy.
Dude, these Steelers, I hate these Steelers, but I have a lot of friends that played there. These guys would come to Cincinnati and they're freaking terrible towels. There would be more Steeler fans than Bengal fans. It was like a effing home game for the Steelers, like in Cincinnati. It was so frustrating. Just so frustrating. You just hated those guys. And plus they had a bunch of jerks running around. Like, these guys, I played special teams, right? You had guys like, you know, these guys were like super athletic, strong. They'll put 8 linebackers on a freaking kickoff, Rice, on special teams. And these guys are straight liners. They're just going to run. Baltimore was the same way, right? Like, they put about 5 or 6 linebackers on those. They're tough. It was about toughness. Mm-hmm. Steelers represented toughness, and they did that.
So obviously, after your NFL career, you have done stuff, continue to do stuff involving sports, and you're a CEO of a company. So if you don't mind, can you explain what you're doing now after your football career?
Yeah, thanks, man. It's been a long run. Tried a lot of different things. Was, you know, in transition like a lot of players were, and didn't know really what they were going to do, and so. I've tried a lot of things, man. I just, you know, from a sales background, going into sales, I did some things with Merrill Lynch. You know, I owned a couple nightclubs. Mm-hmm. You know, I even got into the fight UFC and fighting. You know, we paved the way for UFC, like kind of 101 in Philadelphia. We got fighting sanction in Philly. You know, so we've been dabbling in so many different things, and we never really never really knew like what to do. And I say that because it's the same problem that people that are in everyday life have. And I only say that the transition this conversation to say that um, I, for the last 5 or 6 years, I've helped over 20,000 professional athletes, veterans, law enforcement, um, people from the criminal justice system transition from that into the private sectors. And that one of the things is it was about it's how your skill sets transfer over. Most people don't know how their skill sets transfer over, and just like I didn't know how that worked. Like all these qualities transferred over, and so I spent a lot of time from sales until I went into serving people. And so during that serving people, partly I started my company, Steve Strategic Solutions, was I didn't I wanted to I wanted to, as a sales, you ask me for A, B, and C, and people offer you D, E, and F, right? I freaking fundamentally hated that. And I really wanted to listen to what the client or what the customer or what anybody was saying. I wanted to listen to you and then put a plan together for you. And so we did that. And doing that, we built a wonderful company. Right now, we're active in like 26 countries around the world. Internationally, we do humanitarian projects, finance, funding, infrastructure, whether it's building different towers or alternative energy, those sort of things, or whether it's delivering food or moving food from South Africa or different places in Chad and other places around the world. Um, and and so when we started doing that, like our company right now is set up to move crisis to crisis. Like it doesn't matter what happens in the world unless God comes back or something like that.
Right.
Other than that, like we're set up to move from crisis to crisis to crisis because we're based on service. And throughout this service now, we have another company that we have, which is called S3 AMX USA. With our partners all the way in Europe. We have about 25, 26 factories. And so we are helping and answering the call to this pandemic. And so most of our time now is making sure we can help hospitals, law enforcement, people on the front lines, from whether it's in California or all the way to DC, and making sure that people are taken care of, making sure people have PPE, whether it's masks, whether it's gloves, whether it's surgical gowns, no matter what it is. And so that's why my time like now I'm not on social media as much. I may be on it. I'm not, because I don't really have time. Like I'm never on Facebook.
Yeah.
I start at 4 in the morning communicating with my team in China or Malaysia or Bangladesh, and we spend the majority of our day figuring out or strategizing how we're going to help people, how we're going to put product in people's hands, how we're going to keep these people from going homeless, and I know, me and my wife was laughing yesterday. She was like, you can't save the world. Like, you can't do it, right? And I'm like, yeah, but I can try.
Mm-hmm.
I can try. And so, I'm different. I'm the same way. I could be on the phone with billionaires or NFL owner or, a prime minister in another country,
Right.
and I'm still going to act the same way. Like, I learned that from Chad, right? He said, no matter, like, this is who you are, and this is who I am. I want to laugh. We want to do business. If you don't, if you want to be uptight and don't want to laugh and don't want to impact people, then I just want to do business with you. Very simple.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
That's really inspiring what you guys are doing right now. Keep it going, man. That's really awesome, and I gotta check it out, and I might have I might have to chip in and help too. So
It's good, man. It's nothing like. Plus, people are so fraudulent, right? It's like nobody is who they say they are, like, and so that's part of the thing is navigating through all the people that are exploiting opportunities or just trying to make a couple quick bucks, who are defrauding people, and so sifting through all that to make sure the right people have it. I don't know. Like there's sports going on right now. There's basketball, and I love basketball. And I watched some of the game yesterday, but like I feel guilty because I know that there's a lot of people depending and counting on me to make sure on our team to make sure that they're situated and ready to go, because people are dying. Like, like I'm on record. If you follow me on Twitter or LinkedIn, I say, I don't think there should be professional sports playing at all.
Right.
Like, at all. I don't think that's responsible. I don't think that I feel like, they want us to just entertain you, entertain people, like go out there and dance, right? That's that's kind of how I feel about it. Nobody was caring. Like, well, you guys paid all this money, you guys are going to sit out. I'm like, screw you, dude. Like, these people have families,
right,
kids, grandparents, not even those people, but the civilians who come in there and work, and they have families and they're being put. Now, I appreciate the fact that they have jobs and they're getting paid, but come on, these organizations make billions of dollars. They can take care of those workers in that stadium without having a damn game. They can do that. I've seen their portfolios. I buy and sell teams. I know exactly what they have. So don't come out here acting like you guys have to do this or you guys have to do that. Like, you can do it,
Yeah. So speaking of, everybody should be talking about this important topic. I want to ask you, what's your reaction like seeing these NBA players, WNBA players, and also the players from the other sports taking a stand and making a statement for the social injustice, and they were boycotting games, and obviously they're back playing. But what's it like seeing them taking a stand, making a statement, and trying to solve this issue that's going on right now?
I support them. I mean, I more than support them. It's like, no matter how you try to make some awareness, no matter how you try to say it, like, no one's listening to you. And it's not that nobody's listening to you.
Mm-hmm.
They really don't care what you have to say. They don't care. They don't care. And so you peacefully protest, go home, get out of the street, right? You mess some shit up. What are you doing? You're a criminal. You show up it's like there's absolutely nothing you can do to get your point across, right? And so these athletes are brave. And people are like, well, they're rich. Like, they've made it. Like, listen, let me tell you something. I'm 38 years old. I told you what I do. I've impacted lots of people. I've helped a lot of law enforcement.
Yeah.
I've did a lot of stuff for a lot of stuff. But guess what? I've been illegally pulled over out of my car 12 times all across America, and rights violated, like myself. Pull out of your car destroyed, never getting a ticket. Where are you going? Where are you coming from? Just get out of the car. Like, that's real shit. And when people don't experience that, they don't really understand. We have 6 kids. I got 5 sons, right? And my son is tall as me. He's 14 years old. Like, there's a threat on his life. And it's not about, okay, well, won't you comply? Like, listen, I can go out of my way to avoid you. But that's not the issue. The issue is they're looking to engage me. And that's a whole nother ball game. It's a whole nother ball game. And with that said, I know a lot of law enforcement guys, and I'm not a defund the police or, law enforcement this and law enforcement that. Like, I know a lot of great police officers. Like, in my personal life, I've never had an issue with a local police officer anywhere. It's always been highway patrols and state cowboys. I mean, I call them cowboys, state patrols, right? That's what they are, right? But their jobs is hard. Like, them going to domestics, that's the number one place where they lose their lives. Like, there's so much that's just wrong that we can't even have a basic conversation about it. Like, I think you can acknowledge that 10% of everybody is some shit, right? Of every race, of every organization, football players, 10% of football players are some trash, doing whatever the hell you think they're doing. 10% of law enforcement's doing the same thing. And so I think you can acknowledge that, look, there's a lot of great people, but there's some bad apples. And if you can't identify those bad apples and you're going to stand with them regardless, and it's not just law enforcement, it's everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you don't have to be, and that's what it just bothers me so much, because it's like you have to be on a side. You either this or you're that, or you're this or you're that, or you're, you know, you say Black Lives Matter, people say, no, all lives matter. I'm like, man, shut the hell up. Like, what are you guys talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Of course all lives matter. Of course. But are you worrying about losing your life when you leave your home to go to Safeway? No. You're not.
Mm-hmm.
You're not worried about that. He's like, you're not, right? It sounds good. Like, won't you just obey? I'm like, really? Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, so a couple of last two things here before I let you go. Who do you got in the NBA Finals this year?
I'm a huge LeBron James fan. You know what? I watched him play in high school. I watched him play his junior year, and I've seen him play there. I was lucky enough to do that, and I was following him ever since. I was kind of hating on him, and I was hating on him when he left Cleveland, and now I just have nothing but the most respect for him and his family. You know, I just tell you straight up, like I was hating on him, like at first, but I'm like one of his biggest fans as well, because it's not just the way that he plays basketball. It's the way that he carries himself. It's the way his vision, the way that his vision for other people, how he wants to impact other people. Like he's selfless in what he's doing in academies, in schools, right to vote, social impacting, all these things in these communities. Damn the basketball. It's those things, you know? It's like, well, no, shut up and dribble. No, these guys are really putting their money where their mouth is and doing these things. So I'm a hardcore Laker fan too. My agent was a Laker, Norm Nixon, and he played for the Clippers. And so I had a great opportunity to meet, you know, Magic and all these guys. And so Byron Scott's cool. I know him. Him and his nephew were really good friends in college. And so I've been around these guys. And so I always support the Lakers. You know, that's just what it is. And I was more than happy when LeBron came. I was happy when AD came. You don't see me on social media like everybody else. Oh, Lakers, Lakers. I'm not that kind of guy. You see, I didn't even want to get on video. I never, you know, I'm not the in your face kind of guy. Even though I talk like it, I'm never really in front of cameras and those kind of things. I don't know. It's just not my style.
So you got the Lakers in the finals then?
Of course, I got the Lakers in the finals.
Yeah, so the last thing here, this is the question I've been bringing up to all my guests about the late Kobe Bryant, his daughter Gianna, Mama mentality, and the rest of the people that were involved in the horrible crash. But what do they mean to you, for you being a former athlete? What do they mean to you?
Sorry, I had to stop this line and rip up my camera. Man, it's been a crazy year, right?
Yeah.
Kobe was like invincible. When Kobe died, like we all were doomed. I'm like, God took Kobe away? I'm like, it was just, you know, the outside of Kobe's game and all those sort of things, obviously there's a tragedy here. Kobe represented a mindset, a thought process mindset, whether you're an entrepreneur or small business or whether you're anybody trying to do things. Like he came with the mentality of way of doing things, super razor sharp focus, and being locked in to whether it's your opponent, whether it's your game plan, whether it's your business plan, or whether it was about repetitiously, like, and he was a perfectionist. He taught us really to be to perfection. He perfected all of Jordan's moves.
Yeah.
all of them. He did some of them better than Jordan. And that's, it's like his Mamba mentality, like all those things, like that's kind of like a way of life. I've never got into the Mamba stuff, but I know that he's a winner. He's determined. And those are the type of characteristics that, that I have and I try to push on, to my sons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so well said, and thank you for coming on the podcast today, the NR Hour edition. Larry Stevens Jr., former NFL player, former player from Michigan, and now he's doing some great things as a CEO. And keep inspiring these people, man. Keep up the great work. I'll be posting this on all social media formats, and you and your family stay safe.
Thank you, brother. Take care. Thank you for your time.
And also, I'll send you a couple of my friends' podcasts too. You can check that out too, and then the kids' podcast too.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you having me on and taking the time. I appreciate you taking time to do that.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
No problem. Bye-bye.